remarks now. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. This day, Mr. Speaker, would have ended or gone differently had matters been conducted in a different manner. It comes down to this simple principle, that of comity and that of civility, that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. There is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that the Right Honourable Member for North Abaco, as the second Prime Minister of this country, made a contribution to the development of our country. And as such, in his departure from the political scene, there are certain ceremonial rituals which should ordinarily accompany that departure. The difficulty is that we were faced with is the conduct of the Right Honourable Member in the run-up to what we face today, which forces us to respond in a particular way. I am deeply pained at being forced into this particular circumstance, because ordinarily, at the departure of someone who has been on the public stage for so long, you would want to get up and say thank you to that individual for the contribution that he's made to the country. But we remember so much of the recent past, even if we go into the distant past, of the way he dealt with those of us who were on the other side and those very same small people that the Member of Parliament for Kalani and the Honourable Leader of the Opposition just spoke about. We remember the last day of Parliament, when the House was peremptorily brought to a close. And we remember all those members of Parliament who wanted to say goodbye to their constituents after having given stellar service. This is a rare occasion, a rare favor that the Bahamian people give you to get into this place. And they wanted to say farewell to their constituents. And thank you. And the entire thing was shut down, and the public statement made afterwards is, well, if you want to say goodbye to your constituents, go walk in house to house and tell them goodbye. It just seemed so insensitive. And the then Member of Parliament for St. Cecilia suffered egregiously under that particular regime. So the question then of what should our conduct be in the face of this? But even with that, we have to give credit, really, on this occasion, to the Right Honourable Leader of our own party for our own response to this. Because, you know, when he was defeated and led us into this chamber in 2007, we came here, he came here, and he took whatever blows and licks the Right Honourable Member for North Abaco threw at him like a man. And many of us, we couldn't understand it. And Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Gentleman got up and called the leader of our party whatless. But he stood here and he took that. Let's go back even further. The Right Honourable founder of the country. He too, when he lost, he came here and he took whatever blows were thrown at him by the Right Honourable Member for North Abaco like a man. He didn't cut and run and leave his troops in the lurch. What, Mr. Speaker, are we to make of a situation where you have made a ruling, according to the rules of this House, that at a particular point on the agenda, the right honorable gentleman would have had the opportunity to make whatever statement he wanted to make for whatever time he wanted to do so. And nobody would have interfered with that right. But no, it must be my way or the highway. And so he picks up his Georgie bundles, departs from the house, leaves the troops behind, and abandons them. Only this time, then wants to blame us, say we denied him to speak. And only this time, they had, in my view, the good sense not to follow him out the door. For 3 years, I came into this house with other members from 2007, I think, up to 2000 and, I'm going to go back further than that. 2002, for 4 years, up to 2006. I believe he became leader of the party again in 2006. And he, the Right Honorable Member for North Abaco, would come to this house, mark himself present, and as soon as he had been marked present, get up and leave the precincts of the House and not engage in the debate. He did not return as a regular member to engage in the debate until he was re-elected the leader of his party, but treated us with absolute contempt. And that contempt continued during the time when he became the Right Honorable Prime Minister of the country again. So, as an act of civil disobedience, my expression, I refuse, absolutely refuse, to sit down here and listen to that Right Honorable Member speak for the entire 5 years that he was in this Parliament from 07 to the time of the general election in 2012. I would not do it, because if you are going to treat me with contempt, why should I treat you with respect? Respect is given to whom respect is due. If you treat me with respect, I treat you with respect. And that is what we expect in this Parliament, to act decently. There would be nothing wrong with him as the Member of Parliament for North Abaco, wanting to say farewell to his constituents, sitting in this House until we reach the point on the agenda, like every other member in the House, including the Right Honorable Member for Centerville. Just follow the rules. But no, it's my way or the highway. I think that that is the reason why we are actually here today. I, Mr. Speaker, say this. Let us assume there was some agreement, and it was possible to make an agreement between the sides, because the House can change its rules. But you ask yourself, because you in your statement said this morning that this was a promissory note to retire on the 31st of August, because in our internal discussions we said to ourselves, but this isn't a resignation, this is only a promise to resign on the 31st, because the people that we knew, I was speaking to the Right Honourable Member this morning, I reminded him that Tony Blair, who was the Prime Minister of Britain, on the day he resigned, he came to the House, gave a speech, resigned. He resigned from the House that day, went and said farewell to his constituents, and that was the end of that. But we have had some specific promises made. On the night of the election, I saw on the television a speech in which he said, I will not take up my seat in the House of Assembly. And then, on the day that Parliament opened, I arrived here and I found the Right Honourable Member sitting here, dressed in his suit and ready to take the oath of office. So that is a promise you could not, that was something said that you could not believe. Because he said he wasn't going to take up the seat. He did take up the seat. Then the next thing we heard was, I'm going to resign on the 19th of July, because that's the anniversary of the day that I was elected to office. But turns out that wasn't true either, because the next thing we know, he's actually going to resign on the 31st of August. Now, attorneys have something, Mr. Speaker, called similar fact evidence. Similar fact evidence. It is the exception to the general rule that you cannot put in evidence of previous conduct as a determinant of what is going to happen in the future. But the courts will sometimes make this exception if the facts are so similar that they actually lead you inevitably to that direction. And that's what I say in this instance. If we had this experience of a man saying this on 2 occasions in the recent past, why then ought we to believe, or why should we believe, that the 31st of August is in fact the day of resignation? That is why we find ourselves here today. We find ourselves here today, Mr. Speaker, in this position, in a situation where we want to show civility to a man who has made a contribution to our country, who's the 2nd Prime Minister of the country, who has, even though he's treated us with contempt and incivility, we believe the position deserves a certain ceremonial status and exit. You've kindly offered, if the position is available, that it is possible for that to continue. But the point is that you cannot treat people this side with contempt and then expect civility or us to bend the rules to accommodate your way or the highway. And that is why we're here. And it is no more or no less than that. I am reminded often of the situation with and I keep saying, if those of you who haven't read it, go and read The Emperor Jones, or see the film, The Emperor Jones, about a man who gets the good fortune of being the king or the emperor of an island in the Caribbean. And he is hugely successful. But the more successful he gets, the more contemptuous of the people he leads he becomes. And that is what we feel so much today, that we are constantly talking to his hindquarters because he has not respect for us, but contempt for us. And the youngsters should not have to see this playing out on the national stage. What they ought to see is all of us in unanimity, in a dignified way, on this ceremonial occasion, saying farewell to the 2nd Prime Minister of the Bahamas. Unfortunately, we find ourselves where we have to say, you've treated us with contempt, so you end up in the situation where your legacy is one of bitterness and contemptuousness instead of the legacy of glory which you would have expected. I deeply regret it, but those are the facts, and that's where we are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member.